Hi, this is Lewis. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk about who I am, I guess my journey of self, and I've done a few of these videos, but a friend of mine wants me to invited me to give a talk, um, and it's a 10-minute talk about just sort of like my journey and like some of the coping tools that I've developed over the years dealing with just the natural suffering that comes along with living, you know. So, I wanted to use context of education because I'll be talking to kids. They're I believe middle school age. So, um, you know, come from a little bit of a broken home. My parents had some issues with the in the early '90s during the .com crash, and the financial stress was just too much for their relationship, and a lot of other factors there. Relationships are complicated, people are complicated, and my mom ended up having this abusive boyfriend. I have two sisters, and he was abusive towards me, and he was abusive towards my sisters. I ended up living with my dad. They sent me to live with my dad, and my sister stayed with my mom and her boyfriend. And I was with my dad, and then I'd come back. Then the extent of the abuse with of my mom's boyfriend at the time was revealed, and the so there's a lot of healing still needs to take place. But then I ended up bouncing back and forth between my mom and my dad every year or so. So, for as a young person, I think I was maybe from first grade on. I alternated every year to a different school. So every year I was the new kid, right? And yeah, so it brought me into it brought me into a lot of conflict. Didn't really have my dad was an alcoholic. My mom's kind of an alcoholic. Um, and they're all damaged people. And so like it was a volatile environment, and I wasn't doing very well in school. Uh, I I'm a smart person. I scored really high on like IQ tests and stuff like that, and standardized testing and all this. And but I just didn't do well in school, like socially. Not like I'd be in conflict with other students. Uh, Politically, I I by the time I was in like middle school, like I wasn't even allowed to bring a backpack into class because I was on this like watch list for you know dangerous kids who might bring bombs and weapons and stuff like this. And I had a lot of just like a lot of pressure, systemic pressure from the state, and then having neglected home and no one really advocating for me. Um, and moving back and forth, destabilization there, and yeah, it was a lot. It was rough. I had a really rough educational experience, and by the time I got to 10th grade, um, I left high school in 10th grade. The sociologist for the county, they had they weren't even at this point. I wasn't even allowed in classrooms anymore. I was confined to the library for most of the day, and they brought me in for like an education evaluation. And like I was reading at like I could read. I read at like a college level. I had college level mathematics and all this, and the sociologist was like, "Oh, well, you should just leave. You'd be better off in a college setting, anyways, to be away from all the politicking of the public education system, and like I wouldn't be dealing with kids. I think her exact words to my mom, who was less than enthusiastic about this discussion, was, and I know I'm speeding along because it's a long story, was that she said to my mom, Lewis thinks he's different from the other kids, and he is. And we recommend that he leave high school and go straight into the junior college system, community college program. And that's what happened. But my mom was very supportive. It was kind of an abusive place I was living at, and so I ended up moving out my mom's place at like 16 or something. I might have been 17, but I think it was 16. I basically wasn't home anymore, so I'm going to school, working, making $6 an hour, $5.75 an hour, and trying to go to school. And even though I have, like, I'm an intuitive learner. I learned through doing things. I learned through watching. I have great reading comprehension, so I can read and do well on tests and stuff. I just didn't have the discipline to do the assignments over and over again. I didn't have, like, any sort of home life that would facilitate an environment of patience, and I didn't have anyone advocating for me. And so this is really what I want to get into, is like, I ended up around that time in my like 15, 16, realizing I needed to start advocating for myself, and which is part of getting out of my mom's place and getting a place of my own, and start cultivating a sense of self. And so I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but one thing, like, when I reflect on like that arduous journey, because it did like, I mean, I'm 33 and the last 7 years have flown by a blur. I mean, it's just, as you get older, time seems to speed up. And I would tell, I mean it when I say it. 8th grade seemed to last forever. I didn't even make it through all of 8th grade. You know what I mean? But it lasted forever. I mean, when you're being tortured, time seems to stand still, and that's really what it was. I was under, like, psychological torture. I was not getting along with the kids. Wasn't getting along at home. I didn't have a healthy home life, and the school administrations weren't really happy to have me, because I was on, like, this weird watch list, for troubled youth, which I can get into more detail later. But yeah, man, it was rough. It was a real rough time. And one of the things that one of the blessings I've had in my life is that so many people throughout my life saw what was happening, even though there was all this bureaucracy that that I ended up on the short end, bureaucracy that ended up, like, oppressing me, and, like, the, like, real systemic oppression. There were individuals and teachers and counselors and stuff saw what was happening, and they could have a conversation with me, and they'd be like, "This person is decent, like, he's a good kid." And I had a lot of these people come into my life and tell me that this too will pass. You're a good person. You're smart. You're gonna do great things. And I had so many people just come through my life and advocate for me, and I'm sure there's more people who advocate for me that I'm unaware of, in conversations and behind closed doors. And if I could give any sort of advice to a young person, it would be to seek out mentorship. Look for people who are doing stuff you're interested in and emulate them. Try to befriend them. Life is so much easier with a plan, and cultivating a sense of self, building confidence through accomplishing goals, and learning skills that will support you in life. I mean, I mean, what a great recipe for success. You will be successful if you surround yourself with supportive people. You build skills. Um, and it's hard because, we ask children, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be? Like, we think, like, oh, I got to make a choice, and I got to be this thing forever. And like I do construction, right? I'm a carpenter. I started out as a painter, and I'm graduating into carpentry. I do drywall, tile, and all this stuff. And I don't want to work with my hands for the rest of my life. But I took this as a path to find some sort of financial freedom, to free up my time, to take control of my life, and to support me. And now I have a set of skills that I can take anywhere in the world and be successful. And it's not the end all be all of my existence, but it is a foundational layer of support. And I was able to do these things, to learn these skills by seeking out mentors. People who were painters, and people who knew how to drywall, and people who are tile men, and carpenters and stuff like that, and befriend them. Help them with projects. Sometimes getting paid to help, sometimes not getting paid. It the it's just so invaluable to learn skills and cultivate skills. The there's a lot there, and this is already over 10 minutes. As far as like healthy coping tools, you understand that the you can't control, necessarily what is happening in this world. You can only control how you react. And one thing that we struggle with is when we're dealing with irrational behavior. When we're dealing with other people's like irrational behavior, and we're trying to figure out why all this is happening. And as you get older, you start, at least as I've gotten older, I've started to just accept the reality of situations and be like, okay, well, this is what's happening. It doesn't really necessarily matter why, to a certain extent. This is just what's happening. And if this person's being irrational, there's no point in trying to rationalize their irrational behavior. Nor am I going to win in some sort of argument with some irrational person. And so it becomes important to, like, cultivate a sense of self, so that your foundation of self is not so easily shaken by obstacles in life, social obstacles, physical obstacles. So that's a little bit about me. So I guess I'll talk just for a few more minutes. And so I got into martial arts, and martial arts has been a great baseline for me to, like, cultivate a sense of self and identity and community, because I have I go, and I'm a martial artist because I go, and I gotta get to practice here soon. I go and train, and I go participate, and I go, I compete, I fight, I do these things, and that's why I'm a martial artist. I'm not a martial artist because of some sort of altruistic idea. It's a real manifestation of my physical actions in life. I'm a musician because I play guitar, not because I listen to music, right? Or think about it, to a lesser extent. No, I play guitar, and I practice. And I practice often. I practice every day, and that's how we get good, or mediocre, But yeah, so I'm this martial artist, and I started training in my early 20s, and I found the sense of community really empowering, and the relationships I built, helped me later in life build these skills that I now have. But I got in a car accident when I was 26, 27, and I smashed my leg real bad. We're still talking about actually amputating it. I do have a hard time. I deal with chronic pain every day because of this accident. I couldn't walk for a year, and being a martial artist, being a fighter, I thought I was gonna. I thought like I might fight in the UFC one day. Premier mixed martial arts organization. I really felt like I had the talent to do that. And I was I identify myself as a martial artist, but you get hit by a car and then you're like, you can't walk, and you go through this identity crisis, and it's all very traumatic. And one thing that helped was that I was able to like recognize that I was injured, recognize that it was traumatic, and recognize that it was depressing to be injured, and so like in these expressions of life are valid, but it was temporary, and even the injuries that don't heal, we got to progress. We have to move forward, and we can't tell ourselves that I'm broken. That's just the wrong attitude. We have to if we can't walk, we crawl, we have to persevere, and respect ourselves as life, and really strive, to survive, and more than survive, who really want to thrive in life, despite our complications. And I had to advocate for myself, and had very very few people in my life to advocate for me. I'm an adult. My parents aren't very involved with me, so it's on me, right? And so I had to advocate for myself. I had 5 surgeries over the course of 3 years, and here I am today. I have a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm probably one of the best grapplers in the state of Washington. And I don't say that lightheartedly. I mean, I have a bucket of gold medals to prove it. I have a fight coming up on April 10th. I can't run, I can't jump, but I can kickbox. And so like it was depressing, it was traumatic, but like just persevering and wanting to survive and wanting to do to be better, and not giving up, seeking out mentorship, being honest with myself about my where I'm at, and just pushing forward. Yeah, it, so that was a lot there. I'm not sure what more I could add, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I was so weak after my accident that I couldn't stand up on crutches. I spent a month in the hospital, and they pump you full of drugs, and you're sedated, and I'm not eating. I lost over 20 pounds. Being at like 4% body fat, so I just lost all this muscle, and I atrophied, and there. Yeah, I would tell myself, and I guess here's a little supportive piece is like, tell yourself whatever you have to to motivate you. Like if the dishes in the sink need to be done, just do them, and tell yourself the house is going to burn down if you don't do the dishes, if that's what it takes. But just tell yourself it needs to be done. I need to do my push-ups. I need to do my pull-ups. I need to do my squats, right? Because if I don't, I'm going to be stuck in bed for the rest of my life, and no one's going to pay for my rent. I lost my job. I lost my health care. I lost everything. I lost my girlfriend. I lost this, lost that. And year recovery, 3 years of recovery, still recovering. But within that time, I learned. I learned new skills. I was objective about what I was spending my time on for the most part, and I set goals and walked towards them. And I guess the last thing I would add is it's okay to be mediocre, to not be good at something. You don't start out great. Not all of us are savants. Some people are just superior. It's okay. It's not fair. I know it's not fair, and life is not equal. But man, like, don't let greatness get in the way of goodness. And it's okay. Like, I'm not Jimi Hendrix, but I can play the guitar at the bonfire, and it sounds great. And really, that's all that's necessary, for me at least in my music career, is that I have this skill, and it's a joy to people. It's not everyone in the world's gonna hear me play, but like you know my roommates do. All right, so this was 20 minutes. I'm gonna try to shave this down to 10. um, I listen a few times, but I will post this on my YouTube, and yeah. So it's just a lot about me, just some the tools that I've used. A lot of self honesty, self forgiveness. Writing stuff down. Creating content like this to examine and listen to. Really just gives me so much to work with. If we don't externalize the internal, then we're constantly kind of second guessing who and what who we are, and what we're actually thinking and what we're actually trying to say. By actually creating this content, I'm like, that's me. That's what I think happened, and I'm able to reflect upon it in this like real tangible, honest way. So yeah, I'd strongly recommend journaling, uh, vlogging if you don't have like to write so much. I prefer these vlogs. I just get so much more content out of it, and but yeah, I mean, just anything, create content, express yourself, discover yourself through self expression. It is yeah. So seek out mentorship, discovering self through self expression. You know. Live your best life. Set goals and achieve them. Not everything in life that's achievable is possible, right? Just with patience and effort, we can do anything that's possible. All right, this is Lewis. Best of luck to everyone. Thank you if you watch this and you listen to everything. I appreciate you.